Today's episode of the Star Local Media High School Sports Podcast is brought to you by Baylor Scott & White Sports Performance Center, athletes made here. The Sports Performance Center was developed with one goal in mind: to maximize human performance through movement and recovery. Their team of expert performance sports coaches and trainers will guide you to achieve your performance goals. That's the Baylor Scott & White Sports Performance Center, located at the Star in Frisco. This episode is also brought to you by Allen Dental Studio. Located off Bethany Drive in Allen, their office was designed with you, the patient, in mind, which means an excellent and enjoyable experience. From cosmetics to implants, you deserve a perfect smile, and Allen Dental Studio can make that happen. Also, don't want to leave out another longtime friend of the podcast, Texan Senior Residential Care Homes. With locations in Carrollton and Dallas, Texan Senior Residential Care Homes offers an affordable, high-quality alternative to senior living. Call now at 469-400-7650. That's Texan, spelled T-E-X-S-E-N, Texan Senior Residential Care Homes.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Star Local Media High School Sports Podcast. Just me and Kendrick Johnson today. Yeah, we got to fill the frame. It's just the two of us with Matt Welch running around. Busy today. We're gonna hit the Game of the Week podcast. A couple of games out in your neck of the woods. A couple of McKinney teams, including let's open with the reader voted Game of the Week. Rockwall-Heath and McKinney North. A team that I think a lot of people expect to score a bunch of points, as far as McKinney North's concerned, and Rockwall-Heath, kind of a similar story this year. So
how would it be different last year? Last year's game was on a rainy Thursday night in Rockwall that got delayed by an hour and a half.
Yeah.
It was 26-19. R.J. Bennett, the funny thing is he made a pick to seal their win this year against McKinney, made a big play to seal that game. He was a junior. That was kind of like his coming out party.
Yeah, it's weird because, like you mentioned, it was low scoring for these two teams last year.
Under 40.
Yeah, there's a lot of schools that'd be happy with 26, 30 points in a game, but for these two programs especially, pretty high scoring, and definitely don't expect that kind of result this year. I don't know which way it's going to go. I mean, it seems like there ended up being a consensus on the picket line that we'll get to, but as far as I'm concerned, it seems almost not quite a toss-up. But I guess from the Heath perspective, I'll play the role of kind of the Rockwall-Heath reporter, since we don't really cover them. But everything's new there, which is kind of a weird scenario. And
sometimes it's good though.
Yeah, sometimes it's good, but it's a level of new that all programs don't experience. Even with a new head coach is one thing, but it's new head coach, new offense, new defense, new scheme, new players. Like everything from the ground up is new, and it's worked. It's worked so far.
I'll say that first and last year with McKinney.
Yeah,
McKinney,
yeah. It's worked so far for Heath. I think the one game that you can really kind of take something away from is that Wylie game, because they beat Keller Central, I think held them under 20. They beat Richland, I think held them under 20. I don't think that's really indicative of what that Rockwall-Heath defense is going to do against a better offense. I think Wylie, and even Wylie doesn't have the offense that McKinney North has, but Wylie's a traditionally a little bit of a better program, and they won that game 44-41 and gave up 488 yards to the Pirates. So I think that's a little bit more indicative of why we kind of expect this game, to be so high scoring, because, you have that performance from the defense on the one side against Wylie, and then for Heath, they're just putting up points all over the place. They've put up 40 plus all over the place. The sophomore Josh Hoover won the job at quarterback, and he has been, in 2 out of 3 games at least, he's been incredible. Week 1 he was 10 of 18 for 309 yards and 3 touchdowns, no picks. And then against Wylie, 23 for 32, 455 yards and 5 scores.
Well, since we're talking about efficiency, you can't leave out my man Dylan Markowitz. So far in the year, he's 59 for 83 with 12 touchdowns. Has had at least 3 touchdowns in every game.
Yeah,
no picks.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the key, because Hoover, for as good as he was in those 2 games, really kind of took a step back, I think, against Richland in week 3. It was 15 for 27, so not very efficient. 208 yards, which for a lot of quarterbacks and a lot of systems, that's not a horrible day. But, given the numbers you put up in the first 2 weeks, that's a slow day. 2 touchdowns, but 3 picks. And I think, in a game like this,
turnover's going to be key.
Yeah, because if you expect it to be 56-49,
you got to play. I call possession football. Like, if you're about 2 possessions, like you got some bad can happen, and then you can get away with it. McKinney, they don't turn the ball over often, but last week they had 2 pivotal. They had a fumble the first play of the second half from J.J. Henry, their star receiver, who's having a great year. He's got 22 receptions, 446 yards, and 5 touchdowns already. He's like Markowitz' go-to guy. He got stripped, and they turned into points. And then Markowitz, they got down by 7. They had the block at the 30. Was trying to make a play. He instead of kind of living upon another play, he tried to extend it, and the ball just came out.
Right.
So they had 2 rare turnovers that cost them last week, but I don't expect that offense to turn the ball over much.
No,
because Markowitz is very efficient, and I just looked up. He's averaging 4 touchdowns. He's had 4 touchdowns in all 3 games.
Yeah,
it's crazy. All 3 games, he's had 4 dubs.
I think that's kind of if you're Rockwall-Heath, that's kind of the worry is that performance from Hoover last week and kind of taking a step back. McKinney North, for all the worries on defense and all that kind of stuff, I still think, depending on what you think of Wylie, this is going to be the best team that they've seen. If you're Rockwall-Heath,
they got some staggering numbers for McKinney.
Yeah, and I guess the good news, if you're Heath, is when Hoover kind of took that step back, another sophomore in Zach Evans, a running back, who he had decent games, I think, in weeks 1 and 2, like 75, 80 yards, something like that. So not bad for a sophomore, but then he broke out, when Hoover took that step back, 176 yards on 18 carries and 3 touchdowns to kind of pick up, Hoover in a game that Hoover kind of took a step back and showed his youth a little bit, especially with those 3 picks. So
all those theories though are gonna get tested this week.
Well, and you have to come to McKinney ISD Stadium. That's something. It's homecoming, right?
Homecoming, and then on the ground, Manny Fincher is one of the top, if not the top rusher statistically in Class 5A. He's got 593 yards, 6 touchdowns. Basically, he's averaging 150 and 2 touchdowns a game. Overall, McKinney is putting up not 30, not 40, not 50, but 53.7 points a game.
Right.
And on offense, he said their total yards they've held up people under the 400. That's not happening this week because McKinney North's putting up 615.
Yeah, and it's man, there's just no way I don't think to describe this game except that it's going to be a pure shootout, because you mentioned North averaging 53.5 points, Heath averages 43. It's going to be, it could be up in those Wakeland McKinney North numbers from last week. It could be up in the 60s for one school and one school in the 50s. I mean, it's
the thing I'm going to be interested to see is how does McKinney North's defense respond, because the first 5 possessions, literally Wakeland did what they wanted to do, and they made adjustments in the 3rd quarter. That's how they got them back in, because people see, they gave up 60 points again. But in the context of the game, the first 3 to 4 first 4 series in the second half, they stopped them. They were down by 21 at one time, 21-0, that they tied it up. They never did take the lead, but they tied it up. So our defense gave them a chance to get back in the game. It's just, can we put it together for a full 48?
Right.
That has not been done this year.
Nope.
The defense numbers are staggering as well, and that's not a good look. They're giving up 56 points a game, 636 total yards a game. You can't do that if you want to win games in that district that they're about to go to. When you guys see the Texarkana's, John Tyler's, and Mesquite Poteets of the world.
I think the frustrating thing too, if you're a McKinney North fan, is that it's almost like the Oklahoma conundrum in college football, because you don't need to shut people out. Like, nobody's asking for you to go get 6 turnovers, hold a team to 14 points. Like, you don't need to do that.
Technically, if they can hold teams under 40, they'll beat 90% of teams.
Exactly. I mean,
because you're gonna have to have 40 points just to compete with McKinney North this year. I'll go on record, but there's a lot of data. We're looking for a future story I'm gonna do on Kyle Harden, one of the best offense coordinators in the area, if not the best offense coordinator in the area. He's been offense coordinator 6 years. Guess how many points a game they average in those 6 years?
I don't even want to guess. It's got to be up, 44. How about that?
43.8.
Wow.
And they've averaged 40 or more every year. And that's before this year. This year we already tell you there. So I think they're gonna add to that this year. I think that's safe to say. So you gonna have that, and this team is very talented. Like last week, they got Brandon Frazier, the 4-star commit from Arkansas, and they got J.J. Henry. They got my man Sean Mansour. All he does is catch touchdowns. He like the Chris Carter. He'd be 3rd and 8. Dude don't got but one catch. Boom, touchdown. Right. In fact, he tied the game. His touchdown tied the game up last week.
Right.
And then I'm leaving out somebody. Let me click on here for somebody. Man, you left me out, man.
Because be mad.
There's one person in particular, I can't think of his name. Noah Ford. The guy's made tremendous. Shout out to him. He worked on this game in the summertime. And what happens is people's like, okay, we're not gonna let Henry beat us, and then he'll kill you.
Right.
So that's what happened against Justin Northwest. He had a big game. In fact, this is the microcosm of their season. Henry had 7 catches, 204 yards, and 4 touchdowns in the first half. Didn't get a wink in the second half, and 4 goes off. So even when you try to stop somebody, and then you're like, okay, we're gonna shut down your passing game. You got Manny Fincher busting 180 and 2 tubs on you. So it's like Hulk Hogan used to say, what you gonna do when the Bulldogs offense run wild?
I think that's getting into our predictions. I mentioned that the picket line was unanimous. We all took McKinney North. I think it being in McKinney. They're very comfortable team. Even though they lost last week's only second home game they've lost since that stadium opened. Yeah, the proficiency on offense. I mean, if it's a pure shootout, and that's what we legitimately think it's going to be. I mean, you take the team averaging almost 54 points a game over the one averaging 43. I mean, that's just math. But I think it's going to come down to the simple fact that one, I think the McKinney North defense has a giant chip on its shoulder, and like I said, you don't have to be perfect. If you hold Heath to 36, you win. I think that's a legitimate way to look at it, and just the combination of proven weapons, for McKinney North, Rockwall-Heath, as we mentioned, so much turnover, so much new going on. Jaden Jones has been the big target for them. He's had 200-yard games. I think he's got like 5 touchdowns. They have talent, and Hoover, obviously, tons of promise. Zach Evans, tons of promise. So there's talent on both sides, but just the variety at McKinney North, kind of the more proven nature. These are guys that have put up those kind of numbers for years, for several years now.
This particular crew has probably been they've sent little to a lot playing time last year, and they're all starting. So they were groomed for this year.
Yep. So that was those are our picks, man. We're all going with McKinney North. Contingent upon the defense, I guess you would say, and to that end, you were out.
I got confidence in my man, Coach Villarreal. They won't let that happen 2 weeks in a row. Like you said, they have pride in their defense, and that Coach Fecci said they would figure it out. And so I'm trusting Coach Fecci now to get the dub.
Yeah, and speaking of Coach Fecci, you're going to go out and talk, or you have talked to Max Fecci.
Making a house call, Max Fecci. We had to make a house call.
Big member of that defense. You're going to get his thoughts on how they plan on kind of riding the ship and stepping up and all that good stuff. We will be back to discuss the other 4 potential games of the week, some other big matchups, including one in your neck of the woods with Prosper McKinney. After a word from the sponsor and your talk with Max Fecci.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Star Local Media. 14 newspapers and websites with a print distribution of 270,000 homes and monthly page views of 600,000 online. Star Local Media, your community voice for news. And now, let's get back to the podcast.
Dennis Johnson with Max Fecci, senior captain and senior starting linebacker for McKinney North Bulldogs. What's your mentality after last week?
Well, it was a rough week for us for sure defensively. And our offense is showed out every week. We got to tackle a lot better. This week, we really worked on tackling. Like every day to start off practice, we did our little tackle circuit for like 10, 15 minutes and really went at it. And, I think it helped us a lot. I could see us improving, throughout the week. And, I think our mentality really for this is just get some stops early and get confidence, because that was one thing last week, we were down real big early, and we were just on the bench looking up the scoreboard, and I could just tell everyone was down. We had no confidence in ourselves. So, I think we need that confidence that we had going into the McKinney High game, because, the first half of the McKinney High game, we played phenomenally. Then we let off the gas. They almost came back on us. And then, Northwest, we didn't play well, and then Wakeland didn't play well. So I think we just got to come out, get a couple stops, and get some confidence for sure.
What did y'all do that second half? Because y'all were down 21-0, and then it seemed like y'all made adjustments. Y'all got stops for the first 5 drives. Yeah. And then it changed the time of the game and gave you our chance.
Well, we figured out at the end, there was something going on up front, and we lived one little tweak, and they weren't able to run really. That was what gashing us, was the run, and then they throw over the top, and we were too worried about it. So we got the run stopped, and then we were able to make them predictable and make them throw it, because especially they had that backup quarterback. He was still pretty good though. But I think we just made those little adjustments at half, and we were able to stop them. I think if we would have played better in that first quarter, I felt like that game would have been a lot different. But it is what it is, and it's already gone. But it was a non-district game, and we learned from it. So I think we have one more test, to get ready for district. But I'm excited because this is going to be a real challenge for us against Heath.
What challenge do Heath? It's going to be the same Heath that y'all saw last year.
No, for sure.
What you seen on tape? Tell us what you seen on tape.
They're really, really good football team. Their quarterback is unreal. He's a sophomore. He can throw it almost anywhere on the field. Their running back's pretty good. He's a sophomore too. They got a sophomore backfield. They're good. 2 outside receivers that can really run, and they got a really good O-line. So that's everything you need for a good offense for sure. But they're beatable. We can stop them. We just have to come out and get confidence. We have to do our thing. We got to tackle. That's number one. Tackling's number one for sure. If we don't tackle, we're not going to be able to be successful. So I think if we tackle, we play our defense, and let our offense do their thing, I think we can come out on top in this one.
How do y'all keep team morale high? Because it's kind of first time for sure. Opposite side of the ball is like, dude, we're putting up 49 points a game and not winning. So how do y'all keep everybody on the same page? Because that's got to be nerve wracking.
Well, yeah, it is for sure. But I think the offensive guys, they understand. They know we're a young defense. They know what we're going through. They're just sticking with us. Like, come on, guys. They encourage us probably more than anyone. They encourage us more than we encourage each other. They're like, come on, guys, y'all got this. And I think they're going to do that tomorrow too. I don't think they're ever really going to give up on us. We just got to keep playing and get ready for district. I think this is a good test for us because we got to see as many good teams as possible before we go into that district we got, because there's so many teams in that district that can play, so it'll be good for us.
How big a deal would it be to get the to play with the lead? Because it seemed like that part of the reason y'all had success against High, y'all jumped out on them and y'all got the lead. How big a deal is that to jump out?
Oh, that's huge. I think if we play like we did against High, every game, we'd play great. We were scoring like the first play of every drive on our offense and our defense. We were getting 3 and outs. That's what we need. That just gives us confidence. Because Wakeland, we were down 28-7, I believe, and that was just. We looked up at the scoreboard and we were like, "What are we doing?" We were just sitting there, just like, dumbfounded. Just didn't know what to do. So I think we just get that lead, and I think that'll really help us. Confidence-wise for sure.
How much is the bond that y'all have with the seniors, leadership? And I know you kind of new to the group because you came like later in high school, but how much the fact that everybody knows everybody and everybody's used to winning, how much does that play a role in y'all being able to bounce back and be able to make things happen with the senior leadership that's accustomed to winning?
I think, we know we can win. These guys, as far as I can, they used to play we were in Pee Wee football. They were the best. A lot of these guys on our team, they were the best team in the league, and they've always been winning. And I got to join in on it late freshman year. But we know how to win. We know we can win and we should win. It's just a matter of fact we got to get our defense figured out. Our offense just has to keep improving and just strive to be the best in the area. Which I think they are. They're very, very good. So we just got to improve on defense, and I think we're gonna be all right. We just got a really good chemistry. I feel like they pick us up, the offensive guys, for sure. And they're like, "Come on, y'all got this." So that helps us out a lot. Trying to get these younger guys on board, and just us working as a unit and just playing together.
How big a deal is to play for a guy like Coach Villarreal, who's open-minded, listens to his players, and is willing to try anything as long as it works?
Exactly. Yeah, there was one thing Carson Chris mentioned this week, and he goes, "What? That's a good idea." And he actually implemented our game plan in one of our formations. So, I think he's a very good coach. He knows what he's doing. He's been at the highest level. So, he knows what he's doing for sure. And he's always got a good game plan for us. And, he put us in the right position last week. He's put us in the right position pretty much every week. We haven't been able to make plays. We've been missing like 2 or 3 tackles like every other play. And it's just like, you got to tackle to be a good defense. I know I mentioned that a lot, but it's something that's really, really killed us. We watch film. We're in the right place every time. And Coach V's like, y'all are right there. Just make the tackle, and we're gonna be all right. So I think if we do that, we can take our defense to a whole other level. We just got to tackle better.
Is it a big deal just to win this week, whether it be homecoming, or like if y'all get another just a Northwest game? Is that still going to be a bad? Of course, you want to win regardless, but how big a deal is it to be able to make a stand on the defensive side?
Oh, it's a huge deal. Yeah, it's probably right up there. Of course, winning is number one priority. If it's like 90-80 and we're on top, I don't care. But at the same time, I'm like, we got to get confidence going into district, because I don't want to be testing the waters still when we're playing Sherman, because we got to play well against them. Those are games we have to win to get in the playoffs. So, I think we got to play well this week, and just I mean, if it doesn't go our way defensively, we just got to keep playing. I mean, that's the number one thing. We get down whenever they start scoring on us. So, I really think that if we get some confidence this week, just play well, it'll carry over into district for sure.
And can you give Bulldog Nation a shout out, because y'all a star local game of the week, and y'all won in runaway fashion with all the support from Bulldog Nation.
Yeah. Y'all come out. We're going to give you a good one for sure.
Welcome back to the second half of today's Star Local Media High School Sports Podcast, Game of the Week edition. Kendrick Johnson and I here. Thanks again to Max Fecci for taking the time for that interview. And obviously, the biggest game of the week with McKinney North and Rockwall-Heath coming up. Let's get into some of the other ones in the area. It's a weird week. A lot of teams off, a lot of byes, before district play starts. But still some good matchups, I think. And let's start with Arlington and Mesquite Horn. The thing that strikes me about this one, it's kind of I had a tough time thinking about this game and who I would want to take. I think we all eventually settled on one team, but Mesquite Horn, it's another year where they've had a tough run of things.
Mixed results.
Yeah, well, mixed results, but against teams that are supposed to beat them, against teams that, Cedar Hill and Highland Park, you set yourself up for a non-district schedule with those two teams. That's a tough way to do things, and, you get a 1-2 record, for your trouble.
It helped them out last year. They got a losing record and end up getting to a winning record by winning three playoff games last year. So
yep, and I think that's what you have to hang your hat on if you're a Horn fan or a Horn player, is the fact that you are battle tested. I think Arlington is really solid. I think Arlington ISD is really solid. Arlington's beaten Jesuit 38-21. It's an impressive win, but I don't think EJ Smith was there.
I don't get Arlington ISD that much props there. I think it's top of it's them, and I forget if it's Sam Houston or Lamar.
It's not Sam Houston. I think Sam Houston's the down one. But
okay, so there's Lamar. They're the top two teams. But Arlington's definitely the best team in Arlington this year.
Yeah. So win, although granted, like I said, I think EJ Smith was out for that one. And then a win over Brian Nelson, 38-14, which looks a little better, after Byron Nelson's performance against the Colony. I mean, it looks a little better, but at the same time, it's tough to predict. It's tough to sit here and look at a Horn team that's 1-2, but clearly better than, a typical 1-2 team, and then an Arlington team that's, been impressive. Chris Sims for them is, 673 yards and 9 touchdowns, dual threat. There's a receiver averaging like 28 yards per catch. I mean, they have weapons. And last season, it's weird because, it was another one of those, we talked about Heath and McKinney North and how weird that game was. Yeah. Horn had an advantage in total yardage by like almost 200 yards, I think, but, a pair of late turnovers and a pick six among those, led to the eventual win. So
it's a beat.
Yeah, it's a tough one to predict. I think the thing that really does it for me is just Horn's, I don't know. I mean, they are battle tested, but I think Arlington's wins have convinced me. I think the talent over there has convinced me. I think they're a really solid program.
Arlington Martin's the other team that's good.
Yeah. There you go. But, Arlington in general, I think, has had a pretty good year. But yeah, we were unanimous in taking Arlington, although it seems like that's one of those that could come back and bite us. Every once in a while there's a unanimous pick on the picket line that it's like, it feels a little closer than maybe a 5-0 a 5-0 result would indicate. But regardless, we're all taking the Colts to beat Mesquite Horn. That one's Friday, 7:30 at Hanby. Let's go to a weird district in District 758 Division 2. One of the few districts that's playing this week. Lovejoy has the bye, but Frisco Reedy will be in action against Denison. And this was a game that I think a month ago none of us would have had any trouble picking at all. Reedy was expected to be Reedy. It was expected to come back and be similar to what they were last year, even after losing the amount of talent they did. And it's fair to say that they've been completely unimpressive.
Yeah, and that's why I went lone wolf and picking Denison. People don't realize when you go up north, crazy things happen.
Yeah.
I mean, McKinney North was a victim. They went to Denison's rival, Sherman, and got popped in the head last year. So they going up north, they go up to Denison. So I'm picking against Reedy. I think I don't want to say they're living off what they did last year, but this team has not got gelled the way they wanted to.
Yeah, it doesn't have an identity yet. And I think that I guess to kind of introduce my thinking about this team, they will lose. They will lose a game in 7-5A Division II. They will lose a game, and it's going to happen maybe sooner rather than later.
It's going to happen on Friday.
I don't think it's going to be this week, and I think it has a lot to do with Jadarian Price, far and away the best player on Denison, just an unbelievable athlete. He's been hurt. I don't know how healthy he's going to be going into this Reedy game. And they weren't exactly convincing last week against Lebanon Trail. I mean, you beat them 40-27 or whatever the score was, but that's not exactly the kind of win
like last year, that
they were looking for. And a lot of that had to do with Price being out. And despite Reedy edging literally Lake Dallas by 6 last week, I think that they survive. I think they head up to Munson Stadium and survive this week, and it looks like everybody but you, like you said, you're the lone wolf, agreed with me. Brian, Devin, and Matt all taking Reedy as well, but another game this week. It's a weird 50-50 picket line this week. There's some weird games with all the buys and stuff, but 4-1 for Frisco Reedy in that one. But Jadarian Price is healthy. I think Denison's really good, really young, really fast. If he's healthy and they're firing on all cylinders, and that travel,
they could come out there embarrassed.
That travel up 75 is kind of a little bit harsher to Reedy than we think. It wouldn't shock me, but I think all of us are at least giving Reedy the benefit of the doubt for one more week. If they go up there and lay an egg and get beat at Denison, then I think you might start to see some different results on the picket line for the Lions.
I got the memo, y'all just hadn't got it yet.
Another unanimous one for our next game, Sachse and Wylie, which a lot of years maybe this one isn't unanimous. There's been some years where Wylie's been a little more up than they are this year. Sachse's been a little down, and I think that.
But Sachse's catching up at the right time. Wylie, since I've been covering this area, Wylie's always been that team. Like, I've seen them do this before. They've started off 0-4, and they're in the game at the end of the year. If they win, they go to the playoffs.
Yep.
And then it happened my first year. Them and McKinney had to play a game at Pirate Stadium, and they stopped Matt Gaddick because his junior year at the 1. And if McKinney gets in, McKinney will be going for 3 years in a row going to playoffs. They didn't get in, but Wylie gets in.
Yep.
And that was both teams' first year at 6A.
Yep.
And that team started off 0-4.
Yep.
So
I think this year comes down to the fact that Sachse I don't think is a world beater. I don't think they're as good as they were last year. I think they figured some stuff out, especially a quarterback with Parker Wells.
They're the opposite of Reedy, though. They got an identity.
Yep, they have an identity. They figured something out with Parker Wells and Xavier Foreman. They've kind of, I don't want to say they've abandoned the Jordan Neighbors experiment, but they've found other ways to utilize him and get the ball in his hands other than giving him 10 snaps at quarterback or something like that. So they have a little bit more of an offensive identity. Both those guys are pretty interchangeable. They're happy with that setup, which not always the case in high school, where guys are comfortable sharing the load like that if it means wins, and I expect it to continue. Even though we talked about Wylie briefly with Rockwall-Heath, the narrow 3-point loss, high-scoring game, and you could argue, I guess, that shows a little bit of promise. But last week, I think, is more indicative of what Wylie is. They got beat 31-10 against Jesuit. E.J. Smith played, but only had like 7 carries, so it wasn't like he was running all over the place. And I think that Jesuit team is a lot more indicative of what they'll get with Sachse. I think those teams are on a similar level, kind of in a similar tier this year. We were unanimous in taking the Mustangs. I don't think it's going to be particularly close. I mean, crazier things have happened. I think Wylie's a pretty proud program. Maybe the 0-3 start lights a fire a little bit, and it is in Wylie. There's something to be said for that too.
They're tough at that stadium. The stadium's a very generic stadium, but the ammo, they call it, that stuff is real.
Yeah,
Ammo Nation is real.
Absolutely, but nevertheless, 5-0 for Sachse, and that one, like I said, another unanimous selection on the picket line, and that one, like I said, out at Wylie Friday. Let's round this out with a unanimous selection that we didn't know if it would be unanimous or not based on the podcast earlier this week. It was pretty contentious discussion that we had, but Prosper and McKinney to open up 9-6A play. We all went with Prosper, but I want to get your thoughts on this game, because I think the nature of us picking Prosper.
If we had a spread, I'd definitely be picking against the spread.
Because I think that's really kind of the sticking point. I think all of us, I don't want to speak for Devin, Matt, and Brian, but I think the general consensus is that after what Prosper did to Flower Mound last week, and the way that it was 36-0 at half or whatever with that offense of Blake Short and Pierce Hudgens and the Jaguars that are still expected to contend for a 6-6A title, I think all of us think that Prosper kind of wins this one going away. Why do you think?
I think it's gonna be good because be a close game because McKinney has majorly improved from last year. Coach Shavers and them will have some schemes to give their team a chance. I just don't think they got the experience to pull this game out. That's kind of why they lost to North. But they're going to be in the game. They passed the ball well. Samson Nazarko completed 70% of his passes, 800 yards, 9 tubs. A guy that's a name that you need to get familiar with is Lamaria Ransom. He's a sophomore. He's got 500 yards on the season, 5 touchdowns. Kid doesn't even know how good he is. What's the key to your success? Coach called a play. I just find a hole and make it. He doesn't even know how good he is. He has very good instincts. And then their receiver, Isaiah Rojas, has been killing people. Mm-hmm. He's going to be about topic of my Sunday Spotlight this week. He has 15 catches, 417 yards, and 6 touchdowns.
I think that's kind of the sticking point for me in picking this game is that, I do believe that especially, you talk about Lamaria Ransom, you talk about Rojas, the weapons that McKinney has are very talented, and I think a year, 2 years from now, it's going to be a completely different scene. But just for right now, as good as that offense has been, it's averaged over 500 yards and 49 points a game. Granted, not against the likes of Prosper or some other 9-6A programs, but a really good and really efficient offense to start the year. But I just can't convince myself. I can't bring myself to think that it's the same caliber as Flower Mound's yet. Will it get there? Probably. But just the nature of Blake Short, Pierce Hudgens, like I said, the kind of consistent senior-led offense that Flower Mound has, what Prosper did to them and the way that they absolutely just, had their way and just asserted their will at pretty much every point of that game last week. I don't think McKinney is Flower Mound. And just based off, that logic, I think Prosper's earned the benefit of the doubt in a big way. So we'll see. It's
going to be close to that spread. They will cover.
We'll see. If I think I asked you this earlier in the week. If the spread's like 13.5.
They cover easy.
You think they cover that? You think it's going to be that close?
I go to my guy Jim at MGM, and I'll put my money there. I do have a guy.
He does have a guy. All right. Well, like I mentioned, another unanimous decision. Prosper 5-0, 4-1 against the spread. We'll put it that way. That'll just about do it. Game of the Week podcast for this week. Some interesting ones. Maybe not the best matchups. Maybe not the most action-packed week, like I mentioned, with a lot of teams on by, a lot of districts taking the week off and all that good stuff. But definitely some interesting matchups, and hopefully, especially for the McKinneys and Reedys, McKinney Boyd East, one we didn't even talk about. There's a lot of games that'll kind of shed some light on what these teams might really be, and we'll get a chance to talk about that next week. We'll be back early next week for our reactions from Week 4. District 9-6A play opens up. 7-5A D2 continues. A lot to talk about. So you guys have a good weekend. Enjoy the football, and we will talk to you guys next week.